My name is Molly Prep. I am 22 years old and I am a 15-year cancer survivor. And even being 15 years removed from a diagnosis, I'm still processing that term survivor. And I thought that something like this could be good for me, for other survivors out there, for people going through treatment, for people who know someone who's a survivor going through treatment, or just anybody who's ever had some messy feelings and wants to know about somebody else who's had messy feelings. When I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I was in second grade, and I went through treatment for the next 3 years, roughly until the end of fourth grade. I mostly went through chemotherapy treatments and different medications. It probably doesn't come as a surprise, but that was difficult. I spent a long time feeling isolated from my peers, and it's not to say I didn't have wonderful friends. I truly am so lucky that I had friends who continued to treat me as a kid, and that's exactly what I needed, because so much of my experience in the hospital left me feeling depersonalized and kind of just like a patient instead of a person. To have these friends made a tremendous difference. They made me feel like a kid and a person, and I'm grateful for that. But I also didn't feel like I could talk to them about some of my experiences because they were just on a different wavelength. I just felt like I was grappling with some really big questions that at the time I wasn't sure whether or not they could relate to. I did have friends in the hospital too. They also made a big difference. It sort of normalized some of the experience to know, oh, these friends are also bald, so we don't have to talk about that because we're all on the same page. So I was really grateful to have them just as people who were living in the same environment I was. And yeah, it was not great, but we could sort of band together as cancer kids. We had something automatically in common that kids from home didn't necessarily relate to or understand. So when I finished with treatment, I thought, great, I'll go back to being a normal kid and everything will be fine, and all these scary thoughts and messy feelings I've been having will go away. All these things about my mortality that I was facing as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, and that was not the case. These feelings lingered, as feelings often do, especially when they're not talked about, and at that point I didn't want to talk to anybody. I had lost contact with a lot of friends from the hospital. I didn't want to burden my friends from home, and I really didn't want to burden my parents and my family because I carried a lot of guilt while I was going through my treatment and a lot of guilt after as well. I felt I had put them through this horrific experience. They had to be there for me, which of course they did so willingly, but I felt like I put them in a position where they didn't have a choice, and now that I was physically well, I didn't want them to know that I was emotionally unwell. I wanted to be better for them and for everyone around me. And not surprisingly, wanting to be better emotionally doesn't automatically make you better emotionally. So I went through a lot of processing and different layers of relating to my diagnosis as I got older. I didn't really come to embrace my survivorship until I was a senior in high school, so went from being 7 to 18, 11 years of not connecting to something in my past. Even then, when I was in college, it was still a lot of processing was happening because it was the first time I was really facing my past and all these memories I had and complicated feelings that I had just tried to push away for so long. So it's really only now that I feel like I am a little bit on solid ground again, and I want to speak about that experience, all of the murky, messy feelings that I felt after my treatment ended, because I think that that's not talked about. The cancer culture surrounding survivorship revolves around this idea that now that you're better, things are going to be great. You overcame something so difficult that everything else will just pale in comparison, and you can do it, and life's great, and that sort of thing. I think there's some truth in it. I definitely gained perspective as a result of my past, but it's not to say that all my subsequent challenges were a walk in the park either. I think with this "you beat cancer, you're capable of anything" mindset, it really undermines any future struggles. But I was still going through a lot when I was done with my cancer treatment. It also doesn't address the exhaustion that comes with going through something like cancer and still trying to process it all on the other side. I'm 15 years removed from my diagnosis and I'm still processing what I went through. And nobody told me about that, to expect that. I thought once I was better, life was better, and that was not the case. So I'm hoping that by making videos like this, I can continue to grow and process and speak more clearly about my experience and sort through some of these messy feelings. But also I'm really hoping that people who watch this will gain some kind of perspective or connect to something I'm saying, and they'll feel less alone Everyone's experience is different, but I think that whether you're going through cancer treatment, cancer survivorship, or something completely outside the cancer world, it's very easy to feel alone, and it's not true. People say it all the time, but I think it's hard to believe it sometimes. And when you're sitting there at 3 a.m. feeling like no one has ever felt the way you felt before, it feels so isolating and so real. But I'm hoping that a video like this will remind you that that's not true. And I also think it's really important to acknowledge that there are people out there who will listen and who will be there to support you in whatever you're going through. And if you're not seeing that in the people you're surrounded by right now, then they're just not the right people. That took me a really long time to sort of see and believe in getting there. So thank you for watching this video. I'm hoping that there will be more. I don't exactly have a plan for future videos. There are lots of things I feel like I can talk about, and I'm really open to talking about whatever. I would definitely love to know if there's a certain topic of interest. I'm really comfortable talking about anything. Otherwise, I'll probably do something like this where I just set up a camera and talk and see where the train of thought takes me. I have a lot to say, and I feel ready to say it. And I'm hoping that those watching feel heard, or those who feel they don't know what to say or how to say it. I'm hoping that my voice can help them get there. Thank you for watching and listening. Hopefully I'll see you soon.